Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Burrowes. Thank you for joining us for this very special edition of the Learneezee podcast. And this episode is unique because our longtime host, Rico Lazo, has retired to focus on his own business in communication coaching. I'd like to express my gratitude to Rico for his incredible contribution over the last 4 years and for really leading and organizing so many memorable podcasts. For today's episode, we're really thrilled to have Andrew Pounder here, a Trinidadian or a Trinbagonian, or how do you say that, Andrew?
Trinbagonian.
A Trinbagonian. Welcome, Andrew. Great to see you.
Thank you. Great to see you all as well.
Andrew, you're now residing in Germany, and it's great to have you on the Learneezee Cast, as well as Patrick. How are you today, Patrick?
I'm all right, Jeff. I'm glad that we're able to continue the podcast, and I'll really miss Rico as a guest, but you'll do even better.
Hopefully. With all that said, let's jump into the interview. So, Andrew, it's a Learneezee tradition that we begin by asking what languages you can speak.
Yeah, so I'm from the country of Trinidad and Tobago, and I speak English, and currently I'm learning German.
Okay, and how's that going with learning German? How are you finding it?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I've been in Germany for 3 years now, and actually I did my master's degree here. And for the 3 years that I've been here, I have not really bothered to decide to learn the language, which is quite a shame. It's only now I'm looking for a job and I'm like, shoot, it would be really good to live in Germany. German. It's like, in that time, I didn't even have to really speak German, which I think is insane. I really do.
There are obviously lots of master's degrees now which are in the English language. So if that maybe brings us to the next question, was the master's the reason you traveled halfway across the world? Or was there another reason for you to make that big move from Trinidad to Germany?
It is the reason that I'm in Germany now, but it's not the reason why I made that travel. In a way, I always wanted to. And I guess this is part of like my childhood experience. I grew up in quite a large family. I had 7 sisters and a brother. We weren't necessarily rich, as you could imagine. Things were kind of tough all the time. And my father and my mother, somehow, they made it all work. And what I saw, at least from that age already, was that if I want to do something, then, and I did. My grandmother, she made me very curious about the world. She taught us geography before we learned things in geography, and she talked about Europe. She talked about Greece and France. She loved France, and it really made me want that for myself. But also noticing then that school was probably the only way to do it. Getting really good grades in school was like my way to experience the world in that way, because it could not have been in any other means. So I was able to get into a kind of good school, and in fact that influence stayed with me, because this was like a high school just before you do university. This school in particular, Fatima College, it had a lot of people from all of the different backgrounds in Trinidad, but more on the affluent side, or at least middle class, upper middle class, and so they've been going away. They've had these kinds of experiences. And even if they weren't getting a scholarship, they were probably going to go away for their studies as well.
Okay. Wow.
That really motivated me to try to get a scholarship, and I think at that point in time, there were like 400 scholarships available from the country. The government would pay for 400 people to get scholarships. And maybe half of them, or a little bit less, were these open scholarships. They will pay for everything. You can go anywhere in the world and they will give you the money for that. And I guess the stipulation is that you have to come back to work for the country. And the rest of them were like these additional scholarships. It was like a fixed amount of money that could help supplement your journey. And it was kind of cool because I got that scholarship. That was my motivation. I really wanted to go away. But looking at the US, which I thought was the only option at the time, this additional scholarship that I got wouldn't come even the first year to study in the US. It's so expensive. And so in the end, I decided that, I'm just going to do my bachelor's degree in Trinidad. And yeah, okay, fine. It's okay. I didn't get to go away.
Mhm.
But it didn't stop me from wanting to. And so in that time, I got some money from the government. I did do some traveling. I went to the US a few times. It was really cool. But it's really only since COVID that I even thought that I could do my studies in another place besides the US, which was Germany. I really never thought about it. And I was working in a cement company out of all places.
Mhm.
And because of COVID, they sent us home without pay. And that was kind of crazy. And I ended up doing something to make money, which was to teach lessons.
Oh yeah, great.
And that kind of started making a lot of money. And then the company called me back for another job opportunity. And so I was making a good amount of money. I was like, what do I do with this? And it just happened. One of my friends who decided to come to Germany, maybe like 2 or 3 years before, made me curious about looking. Because I was looking for an opportunity, especially when they sent me home. What could I do?
Mhm.
And I saw this degree, the Sustainable Systems Engineering.
Mhm.
And I messaged her because she's in Germany. And, as a person that has never been to Europe, Germany is just Germany. Maybe the capital is Berlin, but Freiburg and all of these other places. No, that's the Germany. And so I asked her about this degree. And she said, what's crazy? I live in the city in which this degree is, and I think you should apply. And I applied, not expecting anything. And actually, they told me no. So
Oh.
I got rejected.
Oh wow.
But I decided to message and I said, what was the problem? And, they said, well, you don't have enough math credits. And I said, but in Trinidad, I did a degree in a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. So I was really confused why they said no math credits,
Yeah.
not enough. I
Yeah.
think it was just 3 extra credits or 2 extra credits I needed. And I said, okay, can I do an online course or something? And they said, okay, as long as you finish it by September
Wow.
and you send us those results. And so I did this course on Coursera. I finished it probably like 3 days before the end.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because they accepted it. I was happy that they did because most times they expect you to come to the country to do a course in that
Exactly.
country.
And take an exam there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was lucky because I guess maybe it was just 2 credits, so I don't know.
Mhm.
And yeah, early in September, they said, okay, you're accepted.
Mhm.
And then I'm like, what? What does this mean? Because I didn't really plan it. And then it just became this thing that became a kind of leap.
A mission, right? Because you were accepted in September and university begins in October. So you had literally 4 weeks.
I had literally 4 weeks. And because I was doing 2 jobs at the same time, I had the exact amount of money almost to just kind of be able to make that jump.
Wow.
I'm not necessarily asking my parents. Maybe they would try, but that's just not a reality for me.
Yeah.
And so I decided to do it. And then, yeah, in a way that was a big chapter in my life to be able to make that jump. So I did a degree in chemical engineering as well. And the
Right.
reason for that, and maybe this is something you don't know, but so Trinidad and Tobago is this island in the Caribbean. It's really close to Venezuela. And I don't know what comes to your mind when you think about Venezuela, but for me, it's gas and oil. They have a lot of gas and oil reservoirs. And we have a pocket of that as well. And I think early in the 90s, we started to exploit that, or we got big companies to come to exploit that and export our gas and oil, but also to develop our economy in that way. And so up to today, I think 40% of our GDP comes from the energy sector and 80% of our exports as well. So there are a lot of petrochemical industries as well that make ammonia, that eventually make fertilizer or methanol that can be used for a plethora of different top products. And so these are also things that we export as well. And then also concrete, concrete, I don't know. It requires a lot of natural gas to burn limestone to become, I guess, cement. This is very crude analogy, but it also gives off a lot of CO2. And in fact, Trinidad gives off a lot of CO2. I remember that there was a report that was talking about the amount of CO2 per capita.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure, I think at one point in time within the past 20 years, we were in the top 10. We could still be in the top 10, I'm not too sure. And of course, that's per capita. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I think we're still a drop in the ocean compared to the US or China, but
Mhm.
That's crazy I think that's impressive, actually.
Impressive. But
Um,
that means Trinidad is becoming more like a first world country in the sense.
Sometimes I wonder the difference between Trinidad and Germany in terms of which one is the first.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
No,
that's
but
a cultural question here, right?
You always had this fear that energy use or the way energy was produced was a crucial issue because of
yes,
Trinidad's dependency on energy. And as
it, and it
you were maybe thinking about that waste and that
so
pollution.
actually for me it was more like I see that the dependence is there and there is no diversification of the
Yeah.
energy sector. I know that in Germany, at that point in time at least, it was so big on producing solar panels and distributing and the technology was there, it just made sense to look at Germany to see what they were doing because that was kind of a blueprint that I would have liked to follow for Trinidad. And
Okay.
since they don't have the knowledge in Trinidad, my idea was just to say, okay, let's see what's in Germany. How could we get a degree there and go back to Trinidad and start to implement these things, as a sort of entrepreneur.
Entrepreneurship. So you wanted to get the knowledge and bring that knowledge back to Trinidad so you could start your own business. Were there particular topics in sustainability that really excited you in particular? Because you mentioned the example of concrete. How could you produce that more sustainably would be a question, or would there be other areas that you could see in Trinidad? Some of the things that you've learned at university would really be applicable.
Yeah, it's sometimes you don't even have to look so far as to Europe. And there are many examples, and
Mm.
I'll just start with this one. And I think it's a really cool one because in Barbados, which is pretty close to us as well, what they do is they use a lot of water solar heaters.
Mm.
In fact, most of the water that they boil for hot water, that is just from the sun.
Oh,
In Trinidad, because gas is so cheap, we don't do that at all.
wow.
But there was, I think, a study that was done in terms of how much money that was saved from Barbados using water solar heaters, that it was just insane, that it was just like something as small as that could make such a huge difference, And just because we don't have that mindset, the culture is just so different when it comes to utilizing gas and oil,
Mhm.
utilizing electricity. Electricity is wasted so much in Trinidad. Like I said, sometimes I don't know. When I come here, I don't understand if I'm in a first world country or not because nowhere has AC. People don't use dryers and energy, electricity is so expensive, in Trinidad, it felt like
Yeah.
lavish. We were living lavish, at least when it comes to using energy.
That's
Oh,
a really interesting point. So you had this you've sort of hinted at it a few times that you had this expectation that Germany would be perhaps technologically advanced in many ways. And was that expectation actually met from the perspective of an engineer? Did Germany fulfill maybe that ideal you had in your mind?
Yeah, actually, I'm just being cheeky. It's more with the bureaucracy and those kinds of things, and just the culture in general. Because, of course, it's not to say that Germany is cheap when it comes to using it. I think it's smart. You don't need a dryer to dry your clothes. It's a good idea. It's something. It's in terms of energy efficiency. Trinidad is very wasteful, but Germany is really really good at it in some aspects. But coming here to learn about the technologies, that was really 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 cool. Research and development in Germany, especially when it comes to technology, that's the place you want to be. You
Yeah.
know.
yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to take that moment, like you said, like you learned about research and technology, but you did all your education in English. For someone who might be listening and maybe want to follow your steps, like how were you able to find a program in Germany where you would only have to learn English? Was that something in particular that you talked to your friend about, or was it just just your luck that this engineering program was mostly doing this program in English?
I think that's just a German thing now, perhaps, because it's a lot of master's degrees tend to be in English.
Okay.
And that was surprising to me when I looked it up. You know, I mean, of course, not all of them, and some of them are kind of dual. But when it comes to at least engineering and when it comes to science, a lot of them tend to just be in English. And that could be because, you know, papers are written in English. I haven't really seen a lot of scientific papers only written in German, you know. And in fact, I was also working for a research institute here, and also the same thing. The communication, the producing of articles are all done in English, you know. So it does make sense that it would be that they offer these degrees in English, at least from a master's degrees onward.
Okay.
Because if you try to do it for a bachelor degree, actually it's quite difficult to find always an English program.
Mhm. Yeah, well, maybe some of our listeners would be also interested in some of the differences you've noticed between the education system in your home country and the German education system. Have you noticed a difference, or was it a fairly smooth transition? Nothing was that different from your bachelor's degree? How the classes functioned, how the university functioned? Were there any differences?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's way more practical, or at least compared to what I did in Trinidad. And there was a gap for me between my bachelor's degree and my master's degree of 3 years or so, where I guess I forgot how to study. It really is. I'm not entirely too sure if one was harder or not. Both of them were challenging in their own unique ways. Um, there was a lot of cramming, you know, this is the thing. But there was, in Germany, at least what I really appreciated was the ability to not only get a job at the same time as I was doing my degree in the field in which I was doing my degree, but also the classes themselves had practical aspects to it that made it quite tangible always. Whereas sometimes I felt like in Trinidad, what I was doing was just a lot of theoretical memorization. I think that it's not that huge of a difference because there were some courses that were still always just whatever you read, you have to repeat in the exam.
Okay. And what about your experience of the bureaucracy? We hear a lot here in Germany from foreigners coming to Germany that it's difficult to navigate the German bureaucratic jungle. Uh, was that your experience? Did you find it difficult to actually fill out all the forms?
I guess that was part of the cheeky part, because I don't notice the difference. Trinidad and Germany could be the same freaking place, you know, because it's just a lot of paperwork, long lines, and I don't know. I think it was so funny. Of course, it's all in German, and so you have to really understand it. And probably there's even more paperwork here in some cases, but it's always the same thing. And I think you have to know how the system works, and then it makes it a lot easier. And I guess if you come from a place where you're not accustomed to this kind of system, it could be quite frustrating. And I've seen people complain all the time about having to wait so long for this and the other. But for me, I don't know. I'm very pushy because that's how I learned to be, you know. And so I think that I make it happen for me because I know how the system works already, you know.
In Trinidad, is it really tough when it comes to getting paperwork done? Like, did you have an experience also in Trinidad that was comparable to Germany? Because I've experienced Germany in the similar way as you have, that it's really difficult sometimes just to get through the Ausländerbehörde. If you don't have, you know, a high level of German, you really, you know, you, like you said, you have to be persistent, and then you have to maybe bring somebody along that speaks German. What's so tough about Trinidad? Just so the audience learns a little bit.
I think, yeah, it's just you go to a place and you have one document missing, and then they send you back home.
Really?
You know? Yeah, this is how it happens in Germany as well.
Yeah, true.
It's people or you call a place and they're not very helpful, and so you still don't know what you're supposed to do. And so, yeah, so then what you end up doing is you ask the people around you who did it before, and you make sure before you go you have everything plus 10 other things just in case.
Yeah.
You know? You go early in the morning, you know. It's so funny how similar it is. And in general, moving to another country. I don't know if you all experience this the same way, but people are still people.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that it would be so different. I thought Europeans, they're so sophisticated, and it's not to say they're not. It's
Mm-hmm.
just to say you find the same people everywhere in the world. I think that that's really cool.
At least in government institutions.
It's true. It's true. Yeah,
How do
exactly.
they find the same
Yeah,
people in the
exactly. They
government?
find their way into
That's
the government
crazy.
system because it fits their personality. They like to frustrate the rest of us.
Yeah, I think, at least to add more to that, it's the culture that dictates the distribution of different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
So in Freiburg, where we live, people tend to be more open-minded, and in Trinidad, it was a lot of more closed-minded people. But it doesn't mean you don't find open-minded people in Trinidad, and it doesn't mean that there are no closed-minded people in Freiburg. It's just the distribution is based off of the culture and the hierarchy in society. I think it's so interesting, but you find the same people.
So maybe we can hear a little bit about your plans for the future. You finished your master's degree. What sort of projects are you involved in? What are your plans for work? Are you happy living in Freiburg, or are you looking to move away? What's happening at the moment?
Yeah, I guess I told you, like, my first chapter, or at least the first time that I became really uncomfortable, or chose to be really uncomfortable, because Trinidad isn't like a horrible place and I wasn't running away, But to make that jump was really scary. And the jump was to do the degree. The jump was to settle in Germany, and that finished. And now, like, what comes next? This is, it's so scary. You think that after you make one jump, you're done, but it feels like life is just jump after jump after jump, and you could fall at any time. So for me, the next thing is the German. This is what I'm doing right now, and trying to find a job here, because actually, I somehow really love Freiburg. I don't know what it is about the place, but it has this. They glued my feet. I can't move. And it's not up to me, unfortunately. It's based off of the job that I get, and so I'm looking at a lot of sustainable companies that I would like to work with as well. So I did have this experience with Fraunhofer. It was a really cool experience, and now I'm looking for more of the same. Yeah, so it was research and development, but on a very theoretical level. So I guess where I was working was the kind of power to liquid sector. It was more focused on sustainable aviation fuel.
Oh, nice.
So let's just say that, once again, oil and gas, you need that for everything, apparently, including flying. You need kerosene. That is a kind of fraction oil and gas that you can get. And there are ways to make kerosene or aviation fuel that does not come from oil and gas. And that includes...
Well, my question would be, with this synthetic fuel, is it carbon neutral in a sense, or does it pollute the environment less in a sense? Yeah.
Yeah. So at least that's what sustainable aviation fuel is. It is something that is carbon neutral and something that has way less negative effects for the environment.
Oh, wow.
But the way that you go about doing it could be quite different.
Okay.
And so they're utilizing different fundamentals of, I guess, circular economy, or the 3 R's, for example. So in the case of using waste oils, you can use waste oils and fats that come from, I don't know, your fried chicken or something, and you can put that into of course, you have to process it, and you put that into the plane, and that's sustainable aviation fuel. Or you can retake carbon dioxide from the atmosphere directly. You could make, with hydrogen, you could make a synthetic fuel, actually. And the hydrogen, once again, could come from the sun with electrolysis, and so it could become this really, really cool concept, but it's not commercial yet. It's a lot of demonstrations, it's a lot of proof of concepts. And the thing is, it's not just the hydrogen, it's then using the hydrogen to create another thing to create sustainable aviation fuel. And then once you can justify the economics, then it could all work out. But somehow I think that with the politics, because there's a lot of complicated things, you know, the politics play a huge role in it as well. How much is the government willing to subsidize certain things? And what is the public's perception of things as well? And so, of course, people want sustainable aviation fuel, but there's still a lot of hesitation. And so I was doing research on a certain process that is using, let's say, the solar panels, the sun energy to create hydrogen, absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere and then creating the synthetic fuel. But it's just a lot of moving cogs. And to see that in real life, I don't know when it will happen. And so in a way, what I was doing to develop a process like that, it's all hypothetical.
Yeah.
And I hope that it ends up happening, but I think I'd rather work with something that I can see more near term, more like tomorrow, you know, do something today and see the results tomorrow. But this could be in the next 5 years, hopefully sooner. Yeah, I have my fingers crossed, but I don't know.
Oh, this is a good place to kind of close off here. So it's great talking to you, Andrew. And I wanted just to get before, Jeff gives out a closing statement. Like, what are your future projects right now that you're doing while you're looking for the, that first, full-time job?
Yeah. A few. So I've been going to a lot of networking events recently, getting to know the space, to know the startups that are up and coming in Europe, also within the realm of sustainability. And yeah, just getting to know some really cool ideas and kind of seeing where I fit in this whole spectrum of sustainability, spectrum of circular economy. Besides that, in Freiburg itself, I think I kind of work with this NGO called the Global Shapers.
Yeah.
And we do a few things in Freiburg. You know, every year we do a plant giveaway. And Freiburg is like this green city. So it's really cool to see people come to get tomato plants or whatever the case may be and just put it on their balcony, because not everywhere is green, unfortunately. And not everybody lives on the ground floor, but it doesn't mean that you can't plant a tree, you know, or just go to the grocery less and just have your own food sustenance in your balcony. Another thing we recently started to look at was mental health. There's a lot of migrants in Germany, in Europe, in Freiburg even, a lot of them coming from all the different parts of the world that have been affected by different types of wars. And we started doing a kind of workshop with dancing with emotions, you know, so just to get people active in a way, in a way. So dancing is something that you can use to kind of help you process some hard emotions. We now started it, and we'll see what happens with it. I mean, I think in general, I'm looking to see the best area that I fit in, and I'm kind of just being very curious and seeing the space, because I think I'm very narrow-minded sometimes. So when I was doing my degree, it just was do my degree. I didn't think about learning German. I didn't think about where I was going to work after. And now it's like, I'm learning German, I have to learn German, you know. But at the same time, okay, at least I can try to see what actually there is available in Freiburg, in Germany, in Europe. And then next year, I think I'm going to start really applying to these places.
Yeah, well, we wish you a lot of luck in that journey, I guess. But yeah, what strikes me is that the sustainability space that you're in sounds like it's a really open area, right? It seems like you could end up in a lot of different
Sectors or...
Yeah, not even sectors. You could be doing so many different things, right? It depends
wide
really
open, yeah.
open, and the
Pretty cool,
horizon
huh?
is really big.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think so too.
And maybe you're kind of part engineer, part economist, part politician. I'm not sure, but it sounds like it's also a very multidisciplinary space as well.
Yeah, I think you're going to have great opportunities, Andrew, especially if you're so well spoken. I can see you, you know, moving up the ranks really quickly in in a company that's doing a lot of these practical projects around sustainability. So I wish you all the best of luck. And yeah, it's been a great, chance for us to talk to you. And yeah, we're looking forward to, collaborating with you and the Global Shapers in other projects that Learneezee is getting involved in this area of sustainability. So just everyone who's listening to our podcast, stay tuned. And we'll, Jeff, I'll just do the exit here. Just everyone stay tuned and please keep learning easy.
Yeah. Hey, see you later.
See ya.
Bye, Andrew.